Hey everyone, part 2 to my new steam engine project. She's ready to rock and roll. She's ready for a test. I added my bypass loop into the feed pump. Comes down to some plastic tubing so I can tell if the pump is actually pumping, and goes back into the tank drain right here for the water tank. I actually have to seal the water tank again because it's weeping a little bit. I think it's happening around the nuts or under the angle iron or whatever, but it still holds water, and there's not really any rust there. Check valves on the boiler and in the pump. These are shuttle checks. They're little actual poppet valves. They're tapered poppet valves, and they had a spring in them. There's a funny story about these. When I took them apart, this one was all crudded up with gypsum or whatever the hell he was using for water, and it just completely gunked it up. So I had some of my special acetone and ATF penetrant, and eventually was able to wiggle the valve loose out of there, and I cleaned everything out really good. When I did the boiler wash, I just blew everything out of there. But anyway, I was looking on the top of the springs. In the top of the spring, there's a little stud. They're a brass valve, but I saw this rusty gunk around the bottom of them, and I'm like, what the hell is it? So I look up in the caps, and sure enough, there were springs in there. But being 40, 50 years old, the springs had corroded and completely disintegrated, so they were no good. So I'm like, well, maybe the steam pressure will and the water pressure will snap them closed, but I wasn't quite sure. They were designed to have springs, so I wanted to really find springs so I know I wouldn't have a problem. And I found the solution in one of the most unlikely sources. I thought about it, and I had a mechanical pen in my pocket, and I took it out and I unscrewed it, and sure enough, there was a little bitty spring in there that was the perfect size to fit in here. And I found every mechanical pen that my mom had in her office, and I just pretty much went through them and found the right size springs for the pump and for the check valve. I know the pump pumps because I turned the engine over by hand, and as you can tell, maybe you can see the bubbles flowing through it, I'm not sure, but well, now it's solid with water. Oh, wait, there's some bubbles, but you can tell that the pump is working now. And, I mean, everything was all gunked up in there. It was, like I said, the boiler, the sight glass, all that stuff was... I have decided to forego the lever and weight safety valve here, and I put a globe valve here because I came up with a new design for what this was for. I could never figure out why he routed the... Well, I know why, but it's kind of a counterintuitive idea to have the safety valve here, but venting up the stack where it's inducing a draft on the fire and just making things burn better, and it's making it hotter instead of getting rid of the pressure, so it's kind of defeating its own purpose. So I decided, hey, if the safety valve is screwed, why not just make a blower out of it? Because the thing is, when this was last fired, there was a lot of creosote in these tubes. I mean, a lot. And there's still a lot in the smoke box still. I mean, look at this gunk. I mean, you could tell that proper combustion wasn't happening, and I could only think of two possible causes: really crappy fuel, or a poor draft, or both. So, I have a blast pipe from the engine's exhaust, but also I put in a blower nozzle. And also, considering there's no steam when you're first lighting off, and there's not going to be a good draft anyway until things get hot, I put in a small globe valve here with a compressed air fitting. So just like for a live steam locomotive, when you're first starting off and you have no steam, you have no nothing, you have life support right here. So you keep the blower valve closed up on the boiler, and you just crack this. And I found this is actually an air chuck, but it's actually done up in a very nice nozzle shape. So I was able to put that on there, and that should make a nice jet of steam going up the stack to create a nice draft, or steam or air. Well, air when I'm getting started. Then when I've got about 10 or 20 pounds on the clock, around 15-ish, I can open that up and get her howling. Oh, my new safety valve, my new Loco Parts safety valve is there. I've got they come set for 120, but that's obviously not set for there anymore. I actually used, believe it or not, I used my AccuCraft Ruby to set the safety valve, because this hole right here is actually 1/8 inch national pipe thread. So I was actually able to put that safety valve on here and raise steam with this and actually reset the valve to pop off at 40 pounds. So really, the only thing I really got to make is just a handle for this sight glass blowdown, because I really don't want to go at that with a pair of pliers and tink, and I break it off, and yeah, that's not a good idea. So that's going to have a handle fitted for it, and the grates are removable. They're actually they're individual bars that pop out of these slots. You usually see my flue brush back there, but a couple of them are bowed, but most of them are in good shape. They just slide back in there. I'm only going to be firing on wood. I'm not going to be firing on anything ridiculously hot. So, it should hold up just fine. And, I mean, the water tank does, like I said, it does weep a little bit. But, I mean, it should hold up long enough for a steam test. And then I could just kind of either reroute the pump intake to another source or just seal the existing tank. I'm going to try to seal the existing tank because I want to keep this thing as original as possible. This oil pump is extremely interesting. It's a mechanical lubricator, but it's like a hand force feed lubricator. This beautifully little machined handle up on top here, this actually, if you have this red valve, the valve handle of this valve pointed upwards, okay, and you turn the lead screw like this, and it pulls the plunger up. This little reservoir up on front is supposed to be filled with oil, steam oil, okay. And when you have this pointed in the up direction and you screw this up, pull the plunger, it draws the oil in from the reservoir into the pump cylinder. And when this is at the top of its stroke, you switch this down, and then you screw it back in, back down, and it pumps the oil through this line into the steam line underneath. And it feeds the cylinders. Also, you have little Gitz oilers here to lubricate the top side of the gridiron valves, because they're such a broad valve that it's really hard to lubricate them. I also lubricate them along the edges and everything, but this engine is just gorgeously machined, just beautifully done. So hopefully next time you see her, she'll have a fire in her belly. Just got to vacuum out all the crap and soot from there, and we'll be ready to light her off. Wish me luck, guys.